The music pulsed through the walls of the frat house. A relentless bass line that rattled the solo cups scattered across sticky tables. I leaned against the kitchen counter, flashing my signature smirk at a junior named Claire, who was laughing too hard at my half-assed joke about her econ professor. Then, out of nowhere, my roommate Ethan stormed in, his face a storm cloud, and shouted, "You're a fraud, Jace Caldwell, and everyone here deserves to know it." The room froze. Claire's giggle died in her throat, and every pair of eyes swiveled toward us. Ethan, usually the quiet one with his nose in a sketchbook, stood there trembling, his hazel eyes blazing with something I'd never seen before: betrayal, raw and unfiltered. I opened my mouth to laugh it off, to spin the moment like I always did, but the word stuck. For the first time in years, I felt the ground shift beneath me, and not in the way I was used to. I'd always been Jace Caldwell, the guy who could charm his way out of anything. At Crestwood College, a liberal arts haven nestled in the rolling hills of upstate New York, I was a legend. Sophomore year, and I'd already dated half the campus, or at least. That's what the rumors said. I didn't correct them. The reputation was a shield, a way to keep people at arm's length while they thought they were close. Flirt, dazzle, move on. That was the game. No one got hurt. Not really, because no one got close enough to matter. Ethan was different. He wasn't supposed to be part of the game. We'd been roommates since freshman year, assigned by some algorithm that clearly had a sense of humor. Me, the loudmouth marketing major who could sell ice to a penguin, and Ethan, the art major who'd rather sketch a tree than talk to one. He was all quiet intensity, with messy dark hair and a habit of leaving charcoal smudges on everything: our dorm's couch, his jeans, even my favorite hoodie once. I'd tease him about it, and he'd just roll his eyes. But there was always this spark in his gaze, like he saw through my bullshit but didn't mind it. Or so I thought. That night at the frat party, as Ethan's words hung in the air, I realized I'd miscalculated. The crowd waited, hungry for drama, and I felt the weight of their stares. "Ethan, man, what's this about?" I said, forcing a laugh, but it sounded hollow even to me. He didn't back down. Instead, he stepped closer, his voice low but carrying like a blade. "You've been playing everyone here. Jace. Stringing along Claire. Mia. That guy from the debate team, hell. Even me. You think it's a game, but it's not. Not to us." The mention of even me hit like a punch. I'd never flirted with Ethan. Not intentionally. Sure, I'd toss him a wink when he'd blush at my dumb jokes, or sling an arm around him when we'd walk to class. But that was just me being me. Right. My mind raced, replaying moments, the late-night talks when he'd open up about his small-town upbringing, the way he'd sketch me when he thought I wasn't looking, the quiet way he'd make me coffee when I was hungover. Had I been playing him, too, without realizing it? Claire broke the silence, her voice sharp. "Is that true, Jace? You've been seeing Mia, too?" The crowd murmured, and I saw the hurt in her eyes, mirrored in others' faces. I wanted to deny it, to spin a story, but Ethan's gaze pinned me in place. For once, my charm was useless. It's not like that," I stammered, but the words felt like sand in my mouth. Ethan shook his head, his voice softer now, almost broken. "You don't get it, do you? You're so busy running from yourself. You don't see what you're doing to everyone else." He turned and walked out, leaving me in the wreckage of my own making. The party resumed, but the vibe was off. Claire stormed off, and the whispers followed me like a shadow as I slipped out into the cool night air. I found Ethan sitting on the steps of our dorm, his sketchbook open but untouched. The campus was quiet now, the golden leaves crunching under my sneakers as I approached. "Ethan," I started, but he cut me off. "Don't. Jace. Just don't." His voice was thick, like he was holding back something bigger. I sat beside him, the silence heavy between us. For the first time, I didn't have a quick comeback. I didn't know how to fix this, and that scared me more than anything. Over the next few days, Ethan barely spoke to me. He'd leave for class before I woke up, his side of the room painfully neat, like he was erasing himself from my orbit. I tried to act normal, flirting with a barista at the campus cafe, but it felt wrong, like I was wearing someone else's skin. The truth was, Ethan's outburst had cracked something open in me. I started noticing things I'd ignored, the way my chest tightened when he laughed, the way I'd catch myself watching him sketch, his hands moving with a grace I couldn't look away from. Was this what he meant by even me? Had I been blind to something right in front of me? By the end of the week, I couldn't take the silence anymore. I cornered him in our dorm, where he was hunched over his desk, charcoal staining his fingers. "Ethan, we need to talk," I said, my voice rougher than I meant it to be. He looked up, and for a moment, I saw the same hurt from the party, but also something else, hope. Maybe. Or fear. "About what?" he asked, his tone guarded. "You gonna tell me I'm wrong? That you're not the guy who breaks hearts for sport?" I flinched. "I'm not. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Especially not you." The words felt clumsy, but they were honest. He stared at me, his eyes searching mine, and I felt exposed in a way I never had before. Not as Jace the player, but as Jace, the guy who might have screwed up something real. I stood there, heart pounding, waiting for Ethan to say something. Anything. The dorm room felt smaller than usual, the air thick with the weight of my confession. His sketchbook lay open, a half-finished drawing of the campus quad smudged with charcoal, and I wondered if he'd been sketching to avoid me. "I don't get you, Jace," he finally said, his voice low but steady. "You act like nothing matters, like you can just breeze through life without consequences. But you're not fooling me anymore." He stood, closing the sketchbook with a snap, and I felt the distance between us grow, even though he was only a few feet away. "I'm not trying to fool anyone," I said, but the words sounded weak, even to me. I don't know how to do this. Be real with someone." I gestured vaguely, my hands flailing like they could grab the right words from the air. "You think I don't care, but I do. About you." His eyes widened, just for a second, before narrowing again. "Don't say that unless you mean it," he warned, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not one of your conquests, Jace. I'm not here to be another story you tell at parties." The words stung because they were true. I'd spent so long building walls with charm and deflection that I didn't know how to tear them down. But looking at Ethan, his jaw tight and his hands clenched, I knew I had to try. "You're not a conquest," I said, stepping closer. You're different. You've always been different." He let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. "Different how?" "Because I called you out. Because I'm the only one who doesn't fall for your act." He turned away, staring out the window at the darkening campus. The quad was empty now, the golden leaves replaced by shadows. I wanted to tell him everything, how I'd grown up in a house where feelings were a liability, where my dad's mantra was toughen up or get left behind. How I'd learned to keep people at a distance because letting them in meant risking rejection. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I said, "I didn't know I was hurting you. I didn't know how much you meant to me until you walked out of that party." Ethan turned back, his expression unreadable. "You don't get to say that now, Jace. Not after everything." He paused, his voice softening. Do you even know what you want? The question hit me like a freight train. Did I? I'd spent so long chasing fleeting moments, flirtations, hookups, the thrill of being wanted that I'd never stopped to ask myself what I actually needed. But standing there, with Ethan's eyes boring into mine, I felt something shift. It wasn't just about fixing things with him. It was about facing the part of myself I'd been running from. I want to figure it out, I said finally. With you. If you'll let me. He didn't respond right away, and the silence was torture. Then he sighed, running a hand through his hair. I need time. Jace. This isn't something you can charm your way through. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. I'm going for a walk. Don't follow me. The door clicked shut, and I was alone with the echo of my own mistakes. I sank onto my bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment I'd taken Ethan for granted. The late-night talks when he'd share stories about his hometown, a sleepy place in Ohio where being openly bi had made him a target. The way he'd light up when he talked about his art, his dreams of showing in a gallery someday. I'd listened, sure, but had I really heard him? The next few days were a blur of awkward silences and stolen glances. Ethan wasn't avoiding me anymore, but he wasn't exactly warming up either. I caught him watching me sometimes, like he was trying to figure out if I was serious or just playing another game. I couldn't blame him. My track record wasn't exactly inspiring trust. One night, I found him in the campus art studio, surrounded by canvases and the sharp smell of paint. He was working on a piece, a vibrant, chaotic swirl of colors that somehow felt like it was screaming. That's intense, I said, leaning against the doorframe. He glanced up, startled, then shrugged. It's how I process things. He dipped his brush in red, dragging it across the canvas with a force that made my chest ache. Process what? I asked, stepping closer. Me. He didn't look at me, but his hand paused mid-stroke. Maybe. Another pause, then quieter. You make it hard to know what's real. Jace. I wanted to argue, to tell him I was real, that this whatever this was felt more real than anything I'd ever chased. But instead, I picked up a spare brush, dipped it in blue, and added a tentative streak to the canvas. Can I help? He raised an eyebrow, half amused, half skeptical. You. Paint. I'm full of surprises, I said, flashing a grin, but it was softer this time, less calculated. He didn't smile back, but he didn't stop me either. We painted in silence, the canvas filling with colors that clashed and blended. Like us. It wasn't much, but it felt like a start. The art studio became our uneasy truce. Ethan didn't trust me yet, and I didn't expect him to. But those late-night painting sessions gave us a way to exist together without words. I'd show up with coffee. He'd hand me a brush, and we'd lose ourselves in colors and shapes. It was the closest I'd ever felt to him, and it scared me how much I wanted more. Outside the studio, though, campus was a minefield. Word of Ethan's outburst had spread, and the rumors about me were relentless. Player, heartbreaker, liar, the words followed me to class, to the dining hall, to the quad. Claire wouldn't look at me. Mia, who I'd gone on a few dates with, posted a vague but pointed status on X about guys who think they're untouchable. Even the debate team guy, Sam, gave me a cold shoulder. I'd earned it, sure, but it still stung. What hurt more was Ethan's distance. He'd talk to me about art or classes, but anything deeper was off limits. I'd catch him sketching in the dorm, his brow furrowed, and I'd wonder what he was holding back. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. Ethan, I said, tossing my backpack onto my bed. Are we ever going to talk about it? Really talk? He looked up from his sketchbook, his pencil hovering. Talk about what? How you're sorry. How you didn't mean it. His voice was sharp, but there was a crack in it, like he was tired of fighting. About us, I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. About why you said, even me at the party. About what this is. I gestured between us, my heart racing. I'd never been this direct, not with anyone. It felt like jumping off a cliff. Ethan's face softened, just for a moment, before he shut his sketchbook. There is no us, Jace. Not like that. You don't even know who you are, let alone what you want from me. His words cut deeper than I expected. I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong. But the truth was, I didn't know. I'd spent so long hiding behind the player persona that I hadn't figured out what was underneath. Was I into guys? Girls? Both. All I knew was that Ethan made me feel something real, something I couldn't charm my way out of. I'm trying, I said, my voice quieter now. I'm trying to figure it out. But I need you to meet me halfway. He stared at me, his eyes searching mine like they had that night in the dorm. Then he stood, grabbing his jacket. I can't be your experiment, Jace. I've been through too much to be someone's maybe. He left, and I was alone again, the weight of his words settling into my bones. The next week, I threw myself into fixing things. I apologized to Claire, to Mia, to Sam. Awkward, messy conversations that left me raw but lighter. I stopped flirting with random people at parties. I started showing up to the art studio even when Ethan wasn't there, painting on my own, trying to make sense of the chaos in my head. I wasn't good at it, but it felt honest, and that was new. One evening, I found Ethan at a campus open mic night, sketching in the corner while a poet rambled about heartbreak. I slid into the seat next to him, offering a tentative smile. Didn't know you were into poetry, I said. I'm not, he replied, not looking up. I just needed somewhere quiet to think. But he didn't tell me to leave, so I stayed, watching the way his pencil moved, capturing the poet's silhouette in sharp, confident lines. When the poet finished, I leaned closer. Can I see? I asked, nodding at his sketchbook. He hesitated, then slid it over. The page was alive with motion students laughing, performers on stage, even me, slouched in my chair with a half smile. You drew me, I said, surprised. You're hard to miss, he muttered, but there was a softness in his voice that hadn't been there before. For the first time since the party, I felt a flicker of hope. We walked back to the dorm together, the night air crisp and the campus glowing under streetlights. I'm not good at this, I admitted as we reached our building. Being real. But I'm trying. Ethan. For you. He stopped, turning to face me. Why me? He asked, his voice barely audible. Why now? I didn't have a clean answer, so I told the truth. Because you see me. The real me, not the act. And I don't want to lose that. He didn't say anything, but he didn't look away either. For the first time, I felt like we were standing on the same ground, even if it was shaky. The next few weeks were a slow dance of progress and setbacks. Ethan and I were talking more, not just about art or classes, but about real things, his fears of never making it as an artist, my dread of turning into my emotionally distant dad. It wasn't easy. I'd spent so long dodging vulnerability that every honest word felt like peeling back a layer of skin. But Ethan was patient, even when I fumbled, and that made me want to try harder. One night, we ended up at a diner off campus, the kind with sticky booths and coffee that tasted like regret. Ethan was sketching the waitress, a tired woman with kind eyes, while I rambled about a marketing project I was bombing. You're not as bad at it as you think, he said, not looking up from his sketch. You're just distracted. Distracted by what? I asked, though I knew the answer. He glanced at me, his lips twitching into a half-smile. You tell me. It was the closest we'd come to acknowledging the shift between us, and my heart did a stupid flip. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. Okay, fine. I'm distracted by you. By this. I gestured between us, my pulse racing. I don't know what I'm doing, Ethan, but I know I don't want to screw it up. He put down his pencil, his expression unreadable. You're not screwing it up, he said quietly. But you're still figuring yourself out. And I can't be the one who gets hurt while you do that. His words were gentle but firm, and they left me reeling. I wanted to promise I wouldn't hurt him, but I didn't trust myself enough to say it. Instead, I nodded, and we finished our coffee in a comfortable silence that felt like progress. Back on campus, things were shifting. The rumors about me were dying down, replaced by whispers about Ethan's art. He'd submitted a piece to a campus exhibit Iona Bold, abstract painting that people couldn't stop talking about. I went to the opening, half expecting him to tell me to stay away, but he just handed me a program and said, "Don't make a scene. Okay." The gallery was packed, the air buzzing with chatter and cheap wine. Ethan's painting was the centerpiece, a riot of colors that somehow told a story of struggle and hope. I stood in front of it, trying to see what he saw when he painted it. It's about coming out, he said, appearing beside me. About being seen, even when it scares you. I turned to him, my throat tight. Is that what it's like for you? Being back home? He nodded, his eyes on the painting. It was like screaming into a void sometimes. People either ignored me or judged me. Moving here, it's better, but it's still hard to trust people. He glanced at me, and I knew he wasn't just talking about his hometown. I want you to trust me, I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. I know I've got a lot to prove, but I'm trying. He didn't respond right away, but he didn't pull away either. We stood there, shoulder to shoulder, letting the crowd's noise wash over us. It felt like a moment we could build on, fragile but real. The next day, I found a note slipped under my pillow. Meet me at the studio tonight. 8 p.m. My heart raced as I read it, a mix of hope and nerves. When I got to the studio, Ethan was already there, setting up a blank canvas. What's this? I asked, gesturing at the setup. A project, he said, handing me a brush. We're painting something together. No pressure, just us. We painted for hours, the canvas filling with a chaotic blend of our styles. Me bold, messy strokes clashing with his precise, thoughtful ones. We didn't talk much, but the silence was warm, filled with stolen glances and accidental brushes of hands. When we stepped back, the canvas was a mess, but it was our mess, and that felt like enough. As we cleaned up, Ethan paused, his eyes meeting mine. This doesn't mean I'm all in, Jace, he said, his voice soft but serious. But it means I'm not out, either. I grinned, my chest light for the first time in weeks. I'll take it. The painting we made together hung in our dorm, a chaotic testament to whatever we were becoming. It wasn't just a canvas. It was a promisito keep showing up, to keep being honest, even when it scared me. But honesty was a muscle I hadn't used much, and I was still learning how to flex it without pulling something. Ethan started letting me in, bit by bit. He'd share stories about his childhood, like the time he got caught kissing a boy behind the bleachers and his dad didn't speak to him for a week. I'd tell him about my mom, who left when I was 10, and how I'd spent years chasing approval from people who didn't matter because I couldn't get it from her. It wasn't all heavy sometimes. We'd just laugh about stupid stuff, like my terrible taste in music or his obsession with burnt toast. But every moment felt like a step closer to something real. Campus life kept moving, though, and not everyone was ready to forgive and forget. At a party one night, Sam from the debate team cornered me. "You think you can just apologize and it's all good?" He snapped, his voice loud enough to draw eyes. "You played me, Jace. You played all of us." I took a deep breath, resisting the urge to deflect with a joke. "You're right," I said, meeting his gaze. "I was a jerk, and I'm sorry. I'm trying to be better." He didn't say anything, just walked away, but the crowd's whispers were quieter this time. Maybe I was earning back a little trust, or maybe they were just bored of me. Ethan was there, watching from across the room. When I caught his eye, he gave me a small nod, like he was proud of me for not running. It wasn't much, but it felt like everything. The turning point came during midterms, when stress had us all on edge. Ethan was pulling all-nighters for his portfolio review, and I was drowning in a marketing presentation I'd barely started. One night, I found him in the dorm, surrounded by crumpled sketches, his eyes red from exhaustion. "You okay?" I asked, dropping my backpack. He shook his head, his voice tight. "I'm bombing this. The review's tomorrow, and half my pieces aren't good enough." He gestured at the sketches, a mix of portraits and abstracts that looked incredible to me, but clearly weren't meeting his standards. I sat beside him, picking up a sketch of a kid playing in a park. "This is amazing," I said. "It's like you captured a whole story in one moment." He snorted, but his shoulders relaxed a little. "You're just saying that." "I'm not," I insisted. "You're stupidly talented, Ethan. You're gonna kill this review." He looked at me, his eyes softening. "Why do you care so much?" The question caught me off guard, but I didn't hesitate. "Because you're you. And I'm kind of in love with you." The words slipped out before I could stop them, raw and unpolished. Ethan froze, his breath catching, and for a moment, I thought I'd ruined everything. Then he leaned forward, closing the distance between us, and kissed me. It wasn't like the movie Yes, no fireworks, no swelling music. It was messy and hesitant, his lips soft but unsure, like he was testing the waters. I kissed him back, my hands finding his, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to perform. I was just Jace, and he was just Ethan, and that was enough. When we pulled back, his face was flushed, his eyes wide. "I didn't expect that," he admitted, his voice shaky. "Me neither," I said, laughing softly. "But I meant it." He didn't say it back. Not yet. But the way he looked at me like I was worth seeing said more than words could. We stayed up all night, not painting or studying, just talking, our hands brushing as we sat closer than we ever had before. The kiss changed everything, but not in the way I'd expected. Ethan and I weren't suddenly a couple, holding hands and posting cute selfies on X. It was Messier, more real. We were two people trying to figure out how to fit together, carrying baggage and scars that didn't always line up. We started spending more time together, not just in the studio but everywhere, grabbing coffee, studying in the library, even sneaking onto the roof of the science building to watch the stars. Ethan opened up more, telling me about his first crush, a boy in high school who'd broken his heart by pretending it never happened. I told him about the pressure I felt to be the guy, the one who always had it together, who never let anyone see him sweat. It was terrifying, letting him see the cracks in my armor, but it was also freeing. Campus noticed the shift. Some people were cool about it, offering smiles or teasing us about being inseparable. Others weren't so kind. I overheard a group of guys in the dining hall whispering about Jace's new phase, their voices dripping with sarcasm. I wanted to confront them, but Ethan grabbed my hand under the table, his grip steady. "Let them talk," he said. "They don't get it." He was right, but it still burned. I wasn't used to being the one judged, and it made me realize how much Ethan had dealt with his whole life. "How do you do it?" I asked one night as we walked back from the library, our shoulders brushing. "Deal with the stares, the comments." He shrugged, his breath visible in the cold air. "You get used to it. Or you don't, but you keep going anyway." He glanced at me, his eyes warm. "Having you helps." My heart did that stupid flip again, and I wanted to kiss him right there in the quad, but I held back. We were still figuring out our rhythm, and I didn't want to push too fast. The real test came at the end of semester art showcase, where Ethan's portfolio was on display. The gallery was packed, the air humming with excitement. I stood by his side as people milled around, praising his work. His painting from the earlier exhibition was there, alongside new pieces that felt even more personal, a self-portrait with fractured lines. A quiet sketch of two hands intertwined. I knew those hands were ours, and my chest swelled with pride. Then I saw my dad in the crowd. He wasn't supposed to be here, and even told me he was coming to campus. He stood by the entrance, arms crossed, his face unreadable as he scanned the room. My stomach dropped. Dad was old school, the kind of guy who thought emotions were a weakness and anything outside the norm was a choice you could just unmake. "Jace," he said, striding over. "Didn't expect to see you at an art thing." His eyes flicked to Ethan, then to the painting of the hands, and I saw the gears turning. "Dad, this is Ethan," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "My roommate. And the best artist here." Ethan extended a hand, but Dad just nodded, his jaw tight. "Nice work," he said to Ethan, but it sounded forced. Then he turned to me. "We need to talk. Outside." I followed him, my heart pounding. Outside, under the harsh glow of a streetlight. He didn't hold back. "What's this I hear about you and some guy?" he demanded. "You're not like that, Jace. You're better than this." His words hit like a slap, but I didn't flinch. "I'm not anything, Dad," I said, my voice low but firm. "I'm just me. And I care about Ethan. That's not changing." He stared at me, his face a mix of anger and disbelief. "You're throwing away everything I taught you." "Maybe I'm finding something better," I shot back. For the first time, I didn't care about his approval. I walked back inside, leaving him in the cold, and found Ethan waiting by the painting. "Everything okay?" he asked, his eyes searching mine. I nodded, taking his hand. "Yeah, it's gonna be." Winter break loomed, and with it, the question of what Ethan and I were. We hadn't put a label on it, but the way he'd smile when I brought him coffee or the way I'd catch him sketching me in stolen moments felt like enough. Still, I knew we couldn't stay in this limbo forever. I wanted more, and I was starting to think he did, too. The night before break, we sat on the dorm roof, bundled in coats and sharing a thermos of hot chocolate. The campus was quiet, most students already gone, and the stars were sharp against the December sky. "What happens when we come back?" I asked, my breath clouding in the air. Ethan leaned back, his shoulder brushing mine. "What do you want to happen?" I turned to him, my heart racing. "I want us. Not just as roommates or friends or whatever we are now. I want to be with you, Ethan. For real." He looked at me, his eyes reflecting the starlight. And for a moment, I thought he'd pull away. Instead, he leaned in, kissing me softly, his lips warm against the cold. I want that, too, he whispered when we pulled back. But I'm scared, Jace. I've been burned before. I know, I said, taking his hand. I'm scared, too. But I'm not running anymore. I'm here, and I'm yours. He smiled, a real smile that lit up his whole face, and I felt like I could breathe for the first time in years. We stayed there, talking and laughing until the cold drove us inside, our hands intertwined like the sketch in his portfolio. When we returned after break, things felt different, not just between us, but in me. I wasn't the player anymore, not because I'd been exposed, but because I didn't need to be. Ethan had seen me at my worst and still chose me, and that gave me the courage to choose myself, too. We faced challenges together, whispers from classmates, my dad's silent disapproval, the uncertainty of what came next. But we also had moments of joy, painting late into the night, sneaking kisses in the library, cheering when Ethan got accepted to a summer art program. Every step felt like a victory, not just for us, but for the person I was becoming. One spring afternoon, we sat in the quad, the same place where Ethan had called me out months ago. The golden leaves were gone, replaced by budding green, and the air was warm with possibility. Ethan was sketching, his pencil flying across the page, and I leaned over to see. It was us, sitting there, our hands linked, our faces soft with something that looked like love. You're getting sappy, I teased, but my voice was thick with emotion. He grinned, nudging me with his shoulder. You love it. I do, I said, and I meant it. Not just about the sketch, but about him, about us, about the messy, beautiful thing we'd built from the wreckage of my old self. As the sun dipped low, casting golden light across the quad, I realized that Ethan's outburst at the party hadn't just exposed might had saved me. It had forced me to face the truth, to stop running, to find something worth staying for. And as I looked at him, his eyes bright with hope and his hand warm in mine, I knew I'd never run again.